Hi guys! Welcome to Aurora Talks Knit. My name is Aurora Cisneros, and in this lesson I'm going to be teaching you how to knit. I'm very excited for you. I know that sounds kind of nerdy, but I know what joy that knitting can bring to people's lives. Being the owner of a knit shop for 7 years, I got to see it firsthand. And it is such a wonderful, stress relieving and cathartic activity. Plus you make something at the end of it, so it's even better. So I'm excited to go on this journey with you, and I just know that you will love it. Before we get started, we need to talk a little bit about the supplies that you need and where to get them. So your best bet is to find a craft store or a yarn shop. So you can hit a big box craft store such as Michael's or Joann and find some yarn there. Or if you want a slightly nicer yarn that's a little bit softer, you can visit a local yarn shop. We call those LYSs for short. So you can visit your LYS in your area and you can just Google for them. Usually it's a small mom and pop shop and they can show you exactly what you need to get started. You will need to pick up yarn and needles, and that's it. That will get you started. So let's talk about the yarn business first. This yarn is by a company called Blue Sky Fibers. This one's actually made of cotton, but I love it because it's very soft. So don't feel bad about picking a yarn by touch. If you squish it and pet it and it's really nice to work with, then it's probably a good yarn for you. The only thing that I would do is make sure you tell the shop owner you're a beginner. You want something that is a little bit thicker, such as this one. I've got another piece of yarn over here. This is what's this is more like string. See how thin that is? This is gorgeous yarn. It actually has silk in it. We'll talk about silk later. But you don't want anything this thin when you start. You want something a little thicker. Now, once you have picked a yarn in the color that you like and how soft it is, and make sure that the weight of the yarn is right, we're going to look at the label here to find out what size needles to use. So you can see here it says needle size is 7 to 9 US, and then it also tells you the millimeters. Okay, so this says a 7 to 9, and I just happen to have a 9 right here. So pull this out of the way and get this to focus. Okay, so on these needles you can see that it says US 9 and it's a 5.5 millimeter. So that is the needle that I want to use for my project. So again, pick your yarn, find the needle range. 7 to 9 will work. I have a 9 here. So that's the needle I'm going to use for this. Now, let's talk about needles. Here is a pair of traditional straight needles, okay? And if I roll these over, you can see that these are US 11 8 millimeter, okay? Now, these needles are fantastic for beginners, so feel free to buy a pair of straight needles when you're getting started. However, as you go along, you'll find that you won't use those as much. You'll use some needles that are called circulars way more often instead. These are circulars. So you can see here that there are 2 needles and they are attached by a cable. Now the reason we have these is not only so that you can knit in a circle in the future, which you need to do to make hats and cowls and even some sweaters, but if you think about casting on a blanket onto these needles here, you can only put so many stitches on here, so that means your blanket can only be a maximum of, what is that, like a foot wide. Now obviously that's not going to work, so we talk about the circular needles. When you put stitches on here, they fall off the end and then they hang out on this cable. So this particular cable is only 24 inches, but they come in 24, 36, 48, 60, so that you can make this cable really long so that you have room for your blanket to kind of hang out down here as you're knitting it. So these are also very helpful. So Whichever one you choose, go to the shop and talk to somebody about it and decide if you want to start on straights or if you want to start on circulars. Either way, both of them work perfectly. All right, so we've got our needles, we've got our yarn, we are pretty much ready to go. So your job now is to find yourself a local yarn shop and go grab yourself a ball of yarn and a set of needles. Now we're going to make a scarf as our very first project. So if you want it to be really long, grab 2 balls of yarn. Oh, one more thing. Look at this ball of yarn right here. It's actually not a ball at all. Do you see that? If I open this up, it turns into a very big loop. See that? It's just kind of a big mess. Now, you cannot knit with it like this. So if you buy a skein that's all twisted up like that, please ask the shop owner to wind it into this. This is what that looks like all wound up. It actually, we lovingly call them yarn cakes because they're delicious and we want to eat them. You'll understand more after you get into fondling yarn. But please make sure that your skein of yarn gets wound into a ball if it's in skein format. Otherwise, if it's just a ball, it will look something like this. This one is already wound into a ball. It comes like this. So you can see the yarn just comes right off of it. So either one of those you need to grab and a set of needles. And then once you have your supplies, I will meet you right back here and we will learn how to cast on.